Good evening, everyone. If you can please take a seat. What? Lean in. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Pull down the thing. Like that. Good evening, everyone. I am Sarah Zacharia. I'm a board of director for ASAP. Or no, I'm a whatever I am. That's who I am. But it's wonderful to be here tonight. It's been a very long, wonderful day watching all the presentations. It is my pleasure to be able to introduce Dr. Roger Jahnke. I, by the way, say Jahnke, but he likes to also say Jahnke, so that people can find his books in the bookstore. And I had the pleasure of introducing him last year, and this year it is my pleasure to introduce him as a keynote speaker. He is a doctor in Chinese medicine and the director for the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, which is a training and research organization that has trained over 2,000 people and has published multiple research papers. Roger has published 2 books, The Healer Within and The Healing Promise of Qi. And he is always a very much welcomed and enjoyed presenter when he comes to ASAP. Roger chose to become a traditional Chinese medicine doctor while he was in medical school, when he had this realization that he was actually more interested in focusing on wellness and disease prevention. So he practiced as a traditional Chinese medicine doctor for many decades and also became a published author. He was also teaching Qigong, and he had a realization that he could actually make an impact as a healer in this new environment. Fun fact about Roger, he loves nature. So he's really blissed out by all the rain, more rain than in the last 15 years. And he's been spending his time going through the trails in the forest in the back of his house, managing them. Maybe not managing them, but treating them with care. So without further ado, I would really love to welcome Roger to present today. And he did change his title. It's no longer Calm Down and Power Up. It is The Power of Presence. Accessible mind, body, and breath practices for therapists and their clients. Thank you.
All right, are we on? Yes, we are on. So, I live in California. It hasn't been raining for a really long time. It rained a lot, and it was difficult for a lot of people, but not for me. It was just amazing. And I have a, I don't know, I think it's a job actually, but nobody pays me, to tend the trails in this forest near my house. And I would say that I was able to divert something like 50 to 100,000 gallons of water that would have gone straight into the ocean into a thirsty, thirsty forest. So that's just, I don't know, it's a kind of bliss. When it's raining, you got your boots on, your shovel, and you're doing all that stuff. It's just amazing. Thank you. So Power Up, Calm Down was a great title, and I got all swept up into my presentation slides, and I forgot what the title was, and so now it's The Power of Presence. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. And I'm going to check and see if this little beeper is working to advance the slides. Do I just press the arrow, right?
You have to open up the laptop.
Open up the laptop. Oh, maybe there's 2 of these. Let's see if this one does it. Yeah. So, you've already had a little introduction to me, so I really want to emphasize the bottom one, practitioner. What I've discovered over all these years of clinical practice, being in medical school, and et cetera, that if the individual who has the longing to be more well is not a practitioner of well-being maximization, then all that doctoring is just kind of like putting, sugar on top of a high gluten cake, and ending up with like pretty much the ability to navigate and stay alive, but the whole concept of thriving has been my foundation. And that requires attention and discipline. I want to just give a little credibility check, because some of the things that we talk about in our time here with energy psychology and all the other energetic-oriented or integrative medicine ideas, shamanic traditions, et cetera, these are ideas that are a little bit unusual, and yet these institutions listed here are all clients of mine. So I have actually lectured at the American Medical Association in the big Crystal Palace in downtown Chicago, and if they thought that what I said was too unusual, they would not have invited me back. And they did invite me back. And so, and this was in the 1990s, so what we know is that there's, buried in there somewhere, there's curiosity. And things have been changing over time. Remember, it was alternative medicine, and it was complementary medicine, and now it's integrated, it went to integrative medicine, but now it's actually migrating to integrative health. And just think of it, medicine is intervention, health is living. And that's, isn't it obvious that that's like what we want to be doing? Well, anyway, I guess it's not obvious because you're not hearing about it on the news, and yet it is so newsworthy. Because I just feel so honored to be associated with ASAP, and so these couple of points. First of all, a community of shared values, amazing. Reverence for origins of energy medicine in ancient time. We love the science. Science proves important things that humans have known for millennia. And so, as science proves what we have known for millennia to be so, we can start to extrapolate, well, what else have we known for millennia that science hasn't even figured out yet? And many energy psychology methods are surprisingly easy to learn, practice, adapt, and sustain. And my goal, and I always like to show this one, this is the classic comprehensive energy psychology map, and basically what it's saying, and you all know this, is that there are so many streams of richness that come from so many shamanic traditions and so many discovered traditions over the millennia. So I won't linger here, you've probably seen this before. The big yellow circles are the ones that are kind of associated with Chinese medicine particularly, and Qigong as a practice specifically. Now, today's proposition, the idea is for you as a therapist, for yourself and for your clients. And I mean, don't we become therapists for a lot of reasons, and isn't one of the reasons that we become therapists to be able to understand our own lives And then we get so enthusiastic and devoted to helping everybody else that, I'm not diagnosing anything here. I'm just suggesting that sometimes we overlook ourselves in the interest of bringing these fantastic ideals into the lives of our clients who are struggling. And, care for the caregiver and all that stuff. So this is, what I'm talking about here is a simple, accessible practices for you and your clients. To distill from transcultural roots an accessible practice for you and your clients. Here's the punchline. The purpose of therapy, this is my idea, this is not like I didn't look this up anywhere, it's just I came up with it myself after 45 years of clinical practice and all the rest of it. The purpose of therapy is to support individuals in attaining an increasing magnitude of self-mastery over time that can leverage empowered personal growth, curiosity. Have you noticed how important being curious is to a thriving human being? Resiliency. Are we not in a time when it looks like it might be a good idea to be extra resilient? Courage. Same. Aren't we in a time when we might want to just break through to the highest level of personal courage that we can possibly manage for our clients, ourselves, our families, and our communities, and productivity? It's not a bad time to be able to, get her done and move things on. Through a personal practice of self-awareness and self-cultivation. Now, the reason why I didn't say the personal practice of Qigong is because that's the bias of my field. My background is in Chinese medicine, and the Chinese traditions of self-awareness and self-cultivation are called Qigong, meaning working with energy. So, but the point is personal practice. That's the thing. And when you send people out from their visits with you, then how often do they come back and report that they've been doing the practice that you suggested they should be doing on a regular basis? Or have they been swept up into the busyness of life and the habituations that we all live with? So, you know about these things that I'm going to say right now, but I want to review them with you to set a context for our time together today. Building a bridge from all these ideas that we have that are so beautiful and empowering towards something that is so distilled and powerful that people can actually implement it without having to say over and over again, I don't have time, this is too much to ask, can't you just give me a pill, all that stuff. So first, the concept of presencing. You know about this, a cultivated ability to interrupt and limit default, habituated, recurring patterns that compromise self-efficacy by experiencing and refining present moment awareness, a skillful means. Now that's a punchline right there. A skillful means, meaning to adapt a skill and use it as a means to be able to, well, what I would say is make medicine within our own body, to turn on powerful elixirs that are naturally occurring within the human system that are almost always neglected by people. A skillful means that can be expanded and become more and more easily repeated appreciated, refined, and adopted with sustained focus and intent. So it's, wow, those are such powerful words. All the, focus and intent first is just, if you got that, discipline is almost in reach. And we'll talk more about that. Now, maybe you have, or maybe you haven't noticed, but the biggest buzzword in the, so first NIH, the NIH is our, Institutes of Health. And there is an office at the Institutes of Health in Washington, National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C., that was founded in 1997, called the Office of Alternative Medicine, which was then transformed into the National Center for Alternative and Complementary Medicine, which was then transformed into the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. That is the potential for some evolution in our society when the National Institutes of Health actually name something an official office using the word health. How do you get health? I mean, you don't get health at a hospital. You don't get health from most drugs. You stay alive. Anyway, I'm revealing some of my biases, I guess. So this word, interoception, is the big key word that is being just whispered and even shouted throughout the National Center for Integrative, Complementary and Integrative Health. And what it means is basically being self-aware. But I just love this idea that the word feel for humans means two things. And maybe we don't notice this very much, but it's actually quite, I don't know, is it an accident that we use the word feeling for both sensory experience and emotional experience? And remember how long it took for the humans to realize that the mind-body connection actually exists? And yet, been using the word feeling to describe these two aspects of our being all along, as if they are something different. And of course they are, because sensory feeling is different than emotional feeling in certain ways of looking at it, I guess you could say. Interoception is the skill of consciously perceiving body sensations and emotional states. Now ask this question regarding your clients. Are they aware of how they're reacting? Or are they just reacting? And of course, it's true that some people are aware that, in fact, maybe they even seek you out. Like, I have become so aware of the fact that I'm kind of reactive, I need some help. But a lot of the people that you probably end up in relationships with as clients want to get fixed, they want to be better, they want to have more vitality, they want to have more thriving, but they really don't know much about how to be consciously self-aware. And so, fortunately, probably starting somewhere around 300,000 years ago, check the number, 300,000 years, how long have the humans been communicating? What's the age of the human gene? 3 million. 3 million years. Is it any surprise that after 2,700,000 years that the humans would actually begin to have fairly sophisticated cognitive interaction and discussions, and when somebody asked for a massage, they probably didn't, 300,000 years ago, they probably didn't say, ruh, 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 ruh. That would have been 1.5 million years ago. So the shamanic wizards, who were basically just scientists of the time, were able to determine some of the simple things that they could do, without drugstores and hospitals, to be able to maximize states of well-being and relieve syndromes and aches and pains and anxiety and sleeplessness and so forth. So, simply put, bridging from habituated default reactivity patterns to accessible, repeatable, trusted, responsible, alternative patterns. And here's this, here's the hard part. Oh my God, here's the hard part. Practice is required. Cultivation is required. I'm not going to say blanket. I just think it's, in my personal view, is that it isn't so inspiring that people feel really good after somebody else does something to them. What really turns this thing into something marvelous is when we distill something so simple that people can actually feel it, number one. They feel it when they come to you and they feel great and then they go away and then et cetera. But what we're talking about now is, could we make it simple enough for them to, and yourself too, to be able to practice every day or even throughout the day. And then there's, and cultivation, that's repeating, of course, but then there's this thing called discipline, which is, when I was a kid, whenever any of our teachers or coaches would use the word discipline, we would always laugh and whisper to each other, the big D, as if, these idiot adults had no idea what they were talking about. And of course, how long did it take you to realize, maybe like 27, 28, starting to sink in a little bit, 35, here it comes, 40, oh my gosh, discipline is the secret to everything. Who knew? Yeah, so let me just, I want to warn you about one thing, is that I thought that I was giving a 2-hour presentation because I read the thing wrong, and there's an hour before me, and now I'm an hour. So I have this massive 2-hour presentation, which I'm not going to put you through. But if you decide that you want to have access to some of the material or some of the other things that I have on offer, if you come, just give me, you don't even have to come up here. I think we're going to a party in a few minutes. Are we? Did I just give away that there's a party for somebody? Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to be here for a couple of days, so you can slip me a card or a piece of paper. It has to have your email on it, and I'll send you some stuff. Oh, the portal to presence is eliminate, all incoming stimulus. So that was kind of interesting. So let's take a deep breath. Align ourselves. In the Chinese tradition, there's this beautiful little phrase called the 3 treasures. The 3 treasures. And the 3 treasures has many features, and one of them is the body, the breath, and the mind. Body, breath, and mind. So during the resonation of this gong, bring your attention to posture, breath deepening, and mind clearing. Mind clearing would mean, you know all this stuff. disassociating from the past and the future, taking up residence in the presence. Here we go. Presencing is pretty easy when there's someone holding the space and then a room full of people who've all agreed. It's a little less so when we're at home and comfortable, even if we're comfortable, and even less so if we're at home and feeling stressed. That's just the way it goes. So that's why discipline and cultivation and practice are necessary, and that is also why if you can do something simple to have the effect, then why would you do something complex? Okay, so I'm gonna just go through these slides very quickly because I'm not even gonna talk about them. Some of them I showed last year. Mainly what I wanna do is get to practice, simple practices that we will use together right now, and then you can watch the video, and the ASEP will probably provide the whole slide presentation for you to be able to have access to these slides, or we'll figure something out so that, because it's all rationale, and what we want to do is we want to cook this. I did the cooking, I did the distilling, all the ancients did this, all the people who've invented all the great energy psychology methodologies in current time, they've all done this thing of taking this massive body of information and potential and distilled it into something useful, at different levels. And what I'm intending for today is to have something so simple and so useful that you can use it right away for yourself and your clients, and that's exciting. Okay, first, big deep breath in, and on the exhale, sigh of relief. Now, if you don't use sighs of relief with your clients, I would say, that was like a 10-second thing, and it has so much influence on the human physiology. I'm going to show a slide on that. Let's do it again. Sigh of relief, big breath in. Okay, so, sorry, this will all look, so you are a scientist. I am a scientist. Your clients are scientists. Why? Because science isn't in universities alone. Ancient people were scientists. The original definition of science is observation, paying attention, noticing. And a scientist is someone who knows, seeks to know. Originally, science was based in experience and observation, and then later it got into being tools and metrics and mathematics, all of which average people don't have the equipment or the inclination to do. And so we've locked ourselves out of science. Not only is it sad, I think it's getting dangerous. Ancient science, recent science, you got that. I just love this, so I've got to say it out loud. Long and slow and deep the breath. So let's do it now. A nice big LSD breath. Exhale very slowly. Do it again, and then turn your attention inward. Exhale very slowly, super deep the breath. A vagal tone enhancing moment produces a profound elixir within us for no cost. You can do LSD breathing with your clients or any time throughout your day. You're driving in your car. Why aren't you doing some LSD? This image is striking for a lot of reasons. One is it's almost impossible to tell the gender of this person. But the other is that it's an image that is classic in the temples of Asia. They have to do with the job of sweeping and clearing. So this is from the Neye, a document from 2,500 years ago in China, used the breath to create an inner dwelling place, a refuge that can be cleared and maintained to accommodate one's eternal essence. Now think for a moment about what does it mean, my eternal essence? Well, first of all, we have the question, is there such a thing as eternal essence? Let's just put that aside and go with the idea that there is, and then we'll talk about that, what that is. And what it is the fact that in some way or another there's an aspect of ourself which is eternal, and that means forever, and it isn't really anywhere except for now, here, in these dimensions. For how long and why, we have no idea. The presencing is intended to be able to support the process of opening and clearing space within our own being for the palpable awareness of the aspect of ourself which is invincible. I mean, you want some of that? I do. So here's the quote from this text. First of all, numinous mind really just means a practical aspect of yourself which is non-distracted in habitual reactivity patterns. There is a numinous mind within the common mind, a non-reactive presence within our being. It is inconceivable, impossible to describe, but you can feel it. It is our inherent essence. When you cultivate numinous mind, you cultivate inspired vitality, the most profound elixir. Practice consciously clean and clear the lodging place, the residence, the home, the refuge of the numinous mind within, and the burden of the myriad things will be lifted. Now, the people that you see in your practice, they are under the weight of the burden of the myriad of things, all the dimensional space-time fiddle-faddle relationships, and particularly relationships under the weight of early, smaller t trauma. And so what can we do to clear a space within ourselves and actually adapt it so that we can find it? Because it's not that easy to find. Tapping, absolutely powerful. Sighs of relief, absolutely powerful. LSD breaths, absolutely powerful. So you know about channels and nadis and so forth, so we're gonna keep going. the Chinese have this beautiful idea of the golden elixir. And the definition for the golden elixir is a naturally occurring internal medicine that we cannot buy. It's priceless. You could go all over the place and have billions of dollars and want to buy it, and you can't. The only thing you can do is have it for free. You're familiar with these ancient methods. I do want to point to the fact that in general, the Chinese tradition is based on self-care. So the ones up above, acupuncture, qi transmission from somebody else, manual massage from somebody else, these are all things that you get from other people, but herbal formulas, grandmas make herbal formulas every day. Food, grandmas make food every day. Qigong, including self-massage, all very easy and accessible. Tai Chi, meditation, personal ritual, and creating retreat time for oneself. These are the superpowers. The Chinese have this pile of ideas. They put healing at the top. We want to put the cool thing at the top, so I'm going to switch it. So healing is now at the bottom, because why would you need to have a healing if you're already thriving and well, because you have the discipline and cultivation to make the golden elixir within your own being for no cost every day in your life, if somebody told you you were allowed to do that. Now think about a third grader 2 years ago. Is there anybody saying anything about how there's some kind of natural capacity for self-healing? No, nothing. These are young children who now understand deeply that the only thing you can do is listen to people on television and follow what they say. I don't know, that just seems like so... Anyway, I think that's kind of gotten to be a little political, so I think we'll stay away from that. So then what we want is wellness, sustained well-being over time, because we're allowed, because we have the resources and knowledge to know how to do it, and we know how to go shopping, and we use the farmer's market, or we grow vegetables, or we make compost, and we have fruit trees. And we do exercise. That 1.5 years ago thing, who is most at risk? The people who don't exercise. Longevity. Longevity means extending healthy life. In our culture, we have a thing called lifespan. Well, there's a whole lot of people with a nice big lifespan who are not happy and who are not well and who are being basically kept alive by drugs. Is that longevity worth pursuing? No. So the Chinese would never even had a thought like that. The only idea for longevity is that it's vital longevity. And then immortality. Experience the presence of the eternal aspect of being, and cultivating a place within our being where that presence is accessible and that we can turn to it. We can use the skills of breath practice and any of the energy medicine methodologies to be able to access. I put in, what my favorite thing that's going on in science right now is the effect of the relaxation response mediated through yoga, meditation, qigong on gene expression. These are the references, and here's what it says. There's a quote from it. More recently, wait a minute, that's 2. try that again. It is becoming increasingly clear that psychosocial stress can manifest as a system-wide perturbations of cellular process, generally increasing oxidative stress and promoting a pro-inflammatory milieu. More recently, chronic psychosocial stress has been associated with accelerated aging and at the cellular level, specifically shortened telomeres, low telomerase activity, decreased antioxidant capacity, and increased oxidative stress are correlated with increased psychosocial stress and with increased vulnerability to a wide variety of disease states. I mean, the DNA is the foundation of everything. And the telomere that has the fuel in it for the cells to be able to divide in a healthy way to sustain human thriving is basically the bottom line. And the fact that we've now discovered that the relaxation response, which is mediated by anything that you do to put yourself in a state of non-reactivity, actually can not only retard the compromise of the DNA and the DNA's capacity to replicate new cells, but it can actually be turned around. The research shows that you can actually recover cellular functional capacity through reducing oxidation, inflammation, all caused by reactivity and stress. All right, yeah, we better take another deep breath. Now, this time, hold for a few moments and then release very slowly. This act produces a profound elixir within us for no cost. Do it again. Hold for a moment. And then exhale very, very slowly. Now, I'm going to pass on this amazing section on light. It turns out that, we have spiritual light, we have scientific light, photons, etc. It's kind of interesting. Here's this beautiful song from Leonard Cohen. Ring the bell that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. I'm not sure that's exactly how it happens, but it's just so alluring as when you hear that line in that song, don't you just like, wow. Okay, presencing, disassociating from the past and the future, that makes sense. Here's a quote from The Secret of the Golden Flower, another ancient text from China. The top one. To circulate the light, rest the mind on the breath. So breath practice is, wow, that's big. And this one from the Tao Te Ching, can you quiet your mind and experience unity, oneness, beyond the known dimensions? Can you modify your breath and adjust your body to sustain the suppleness of a newborn, key phrase, with no cares? Can you? Can you? Can you let your yoga or your qigong practice or your tapping practice or your meditation practice, can you actually employ it in such a way that it supports you in sustaining the flexibility of a newborn with no cares? Can you clear the space within you to accommodate the essence of eternal light? we'll see how the time goes. I think that we probably don't have time to do all these breath practices, so we'll see in just a moment. But I want you to know that this slide is here, and if you give me your information, I'll be sure that you get instruction for these practices, and if we rush on and have a few moments, we'll do them. This is, wow. This is almost like, are you kidding? Is this really happening? So you're familiar with the belly breath. When you take a belly breath, like in yoga, and remember in yoga they said, oh, you shouldn't be breathing in your chest, you should only breathe in your belly. That's not actually true, but what we don't usually do is breathe into our belly, and so it's a reasonable thing to say that it's a good idea to breathe so that your belly expands. And what that does is it compresses, there's a little tiny, you can't see it, but there's below our diaphragm, there's a little tiny bladder, smaller than the urinary bladder. It's called the cisterna chyli, and basically it's a bladder filled with lymph. And when you don't drop the diaphragm down, that lymph is not propelled at anywhere near the magnitude if you do drop the diaphragm down. So right now, go ahead, take a deep breath, which includes a very distinct belly breath. And so that's cleansing the body of metabolites, because that's what the lymph does. And then it's also, the lymph is the highway upon which the immune cells travel. So if you have something going on, like life, where you want to have a fully functional immune functional capacity, then you want to move the lymph, because the lymph, as it's moving more, as it's propelled more efficiently, it's delivering immune cells more efficiently. So then let's go to the chest breath. So go ahead and take a belly breath, and then take a chest breath. And you can hold it for a few moments if you want to, and then let it out slowly. In the lungs, there's what's called the stretch receptor. And if you don't expand your lungs to a certain extent, the stretch receptor is not stimulated. And to be able to get the drug that the brain and spinal cord and the we'll just leave it at brain and spinal cord, produce, to get that drug, you have to trigger the stretch receptor in the lungs. So that means a fully filled lung. Go ahead, do it. And then exhale slowly. And later, when you're on your own, and the best time to do this is when you're lying down to go to sleep. Like, when do you have time? I don't have time for these things. Well, what about the 7 minutes before you fall asleep after you lie down? That's like there for you as a time to be able to practice these methods. Now the other one, the one on the right-hand side up above, the baroreceptor, is in the cardiac system. And when you fill your lungs, and you can feel the pressure building inside of the thoracic cage, inside of the rib cage. That pressure, baro, like in barometer, that pressure causes the release of drugs in your neurological system. Choline-based drugs. Choline-based internal chemistry is choline is the foundation molecule for the vagal system. So when we take a deep belly breath and a deep chest breath, and then hold for a moment to be able to sustain the pressure on the baroreceptors and the stretch in the stretch receptors, your system is just like a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant pouring drugs into your system. And by the way, this is one of the most powerful drugs that you can possibly get for sleeplessness. So when you find yourself sleepless and you took your homeopathics and you took your melatonin and you're still awake, then get going on the breath. Or if you want, skip the homeopathics and the melatonin, go straight to the breath. This is probably among the most profound things that the humans have ever figured out with modern science. And then think of it, has every shamanic culture got a breath practice? How did they do that without science? How could they possibly do that without science? It can't even be true. They didn't have science. Or did they? And did they make science actually something that a person can do, as opposed to like $1 billion facility filled with people who do math? Do I sound like something here? I hope I'm not offending. I'm positive I'm offending somebody, and I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep going. So here's another practice that you can do with your patients and yourself, and you can do this with breath practice before you go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning. So it goes like this. Sit up straight. We're going to use our hands, and I'm going to do it as if I'm lying in bed, because this is the most convenient time to do this. And the points are basically the point that's associated with the heart, the point that is associated with your umbilical cord, which is, according to every shamanic culture, like a power point, because it's the passageway through which all of the, shall we say, the nutrients and so forth are arriving into your body. Is that it? Yeah, okay. So that's my 10-minute signal. The nutrients are penetrating into your body at the age of 1 day and 7 days and 12 days and so forth. So first I'm going to use rubbing. Now, tapping is the same, and pressing is the same, and holding, like in Reiki, they're all doing the same thing. So for the top point is heart, lungs, and thymus gland. The bottom point is large and small intestines, the bladder, and the sexual organs. And if you were standing, you would want to put your feet at shoulder width and sink. Lift your head, lengthen, stroke, and then stop and hold, and do breath practices. And for right now, we'll just do belly, chest, hold, exhale. Belly, chest, hold. Exhaling now, slowly, very slowly. Now, if you're standing, you can put I put my right hand on my liver and my left hand on my spleen, but when you're in bed, it becomes cumbersome. So what I do is I put my right hand across to my spleen and my left hand across to my liver. And I'm gonna do a gesture like this. So I'm massaging my right hand that's below the ribs is below the ribs, and my left hand is above the ribs in the first little hollow that you can kind of feel when you're doing this. And you rub with vigor, liver on the right, spleen and pancreas on the left. Using both hands, massage, stroke the areas while modifying breath pace and depth, and adjusting and lengthening the posture, and holding presence. In other words, not drifting off into worrisome, habituated, you know what I mean, thinking. Stop and hold. And another conscious breath. Then put the hand that was under the ribs, over the ribs, and the hand that was over the ribs, under the ribs, and do the same thing. there are so many different breath practices that you're going to be doing right now. I'm going to do one that goes in, out, in, out. Then I'm going to in, and hold, and stop and do the Reiki gesture. Exhale slowly. Now I'll just throw in, because, well, I mean, we're probably all interested, but I noticed that the women have a greater interest in this, just for the fun. At night, before I'm going to sleep, I also do what we call the facelift. And it goes like this. You put your one finger, your index finger behind your ear and your middle finger in front of your ear, and you rub vigorously. And then you stop and just lift up a little bit. And we're doing it oh so very quickly, so you would actually do this a little longer. And then you go to heels of the hands on the front of your neck, and you do this. Big deep breath. And then also finish by lifting and slowly. You would coordinate this with an exhalation. And then index finger by the nose, middle finger by the nose, index finger by the eye corners, and big deep breath. Exhale slowly. And then the little, gathering here between your eyebrows, circle, 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 circle. Circle, 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 circle. You can decide how much of this you want to do. Then I usually pretty much go to sleep by putting my hand on my heart, my belly button, taking a few more deep breaths, and out we go. So what we've done so far is we did a sigh of relief. We did LSD breathing, and then we did this positioning of the hands thing. And we've noticed that there's probably one little piece of time in a day when this is a little bit easier, which is right before we go to sleep and right after we get up, right after we wake up before we get up. Now here's the hardest part, is that when we want to power up and calm down, or when we want a presence, there's a story running. And it's affecting the autonomic nervous system and causing hysteria and causing oxidative stress and inflammation. And it's reducing the capacity for all the functional self-healing aspects. And so what do we do about the inner story? This is where the real discipline comes in. And so you know about affirmations. And by the way, I think that even though affirmation is amazing. Somebody ought to get a Nobel Prize for that. Because I've been in this business for a really long time, and people don't like affirmations. And the reason is because when you do traditional affirmations, it's like lying to yourself. And my mom said, don't tell a lie. I've got a whole thing going about not lying. And so this whole concept of saying, I'm fine when I'm not, you know what I mean, it just doesn't feel right. But if you say, even though I don't feel right, I'm fine, it's like it acknowledges the thing that we're doing the affirmation for in the first place. It's a kind of wizardry, really. Anyway, let's move on. So this is huge, this is big. The biggest obstacle in the reconsidering of one's inner dialogue, mind-body practice, and breath practice include purposeful development of what one is saying, chanting to oneself. You're familiar with this, and you have your favorite, whatever you want to call it, self-talk strategies. So while you're doing breath practice and very, very simple self-applied massage for yourself or offering this to your clients, also be sure to support those yourself and your clients in continuing to cultivate their own personal self-talk framework that actually feels real. Because, you know, you go to the therapist, they give you affirmations, and it doesn't feel real, then that's just pretty much worthless. But if you go to the therapist and the therapist supports you in developing a strategy for how to talk to yourself more reasonably, that feels possible. And then we have the experience. Remember, we said experience as well as adoption. If you don't get a good experience, there's going to be no adoption. So our job is to be so compassionate and so filled with the longing to hear how this is going to work for this particular person, including ourself. Because typically the therapist, I think Chinese medicine is the same thing. I didn't get into Chinese medicine because I was sick and wanted to figure out how to get better. I got into Chinese medicine because my dad died, and I wanted to be involved in how people could stay well. How to clear the inner residence for amplification of essence, develop and sustain a practice. Just a little breath practice and some self-applied massage as you're going to sleep. That's the beginning. That's a portal. You know this, we are multidimensional beings of energy, consciousness, and light, and all of energy psychology is based on that. It is accurate to think that energy psychology is the grandchild of many millennia of integral energetics practitioners and practices from many cultures, including Qigong from China. So I'm here at ASEP to, you know, raise the flag of Qigong. If you want to access our free Qigong library, etc., you know, and I'm going to do something to get these slides that have these practices to you. If you give me your email address, your name and email address on a little slip of paper or your card. I think we probably used our time. Would I get a thumbs up on that? Yeah, so you can, I mean, you got it. Go to bed, and go to bed right now and practice for a couple of hours. I'm going to be here for a couple of days. I'm super accessible, thrilled to have the opportunity to meet you. Have a beautiful evening and a wonderful conference.